Still on the All Blacks squad, Murray Mexted. Legendary All Black number 8, played 70-something consecutive matches for our team. Back in those days, half of those were midweek matches, okay? So they weren't just all test matches. He didn't take that jersey off till he decided to retire about 10 or 11 consecutive years. Let's start, Mex, with your thoughts on the game on the weekend, and then we will move to the World Cup squad.
Well, I mean, I hate to say I told you so, but I did. Last week I said I'd leave the team the same because, to win the Rugby World Cup, you've got to win it. You can't just compete and maybe win the game. You've actually got to be the best team. And rhythm and flow is an important part of that. And I think that you get rhythm and flow if you've got good combinations that know each other, and you've got good momentum, and you've got good confidence. And I think we had all those things leading into the weekend. And I think the selectors would be feeling pretty sick at half-time. I certainly was, actually, because I thought it had taken away that advantage we had achieved from the first 3 matches. So, so I was very, very relieved to see the improved performance in the second half and actually to come through the game and win it. So, although I didn't think the risk, they took a risk, didn't they, to change the team, a winning team. It didn't come off, but it did answer a number of questions which we all wanted to see. And now the team's been announced and they've come to fruition. But I think number one, it answered that the decision-making at halfback and first 5 was probably not. Decision-making might have been okay, execution maybe not as much, would be the point, I'd say. So I think it clarified, though, that, Mackenzie is a 15-10, and Christie's the second to best halfback. So I think that came through. So therefore, they've resolved that area. I think when Moanga came on, he came on with a hiss and a roar, and all the doubters, including myself, were proven wrong because he showed a clear difference under huge pressure, and showed probably exposed the inexperience of Mackenzie. Now, Mackenzie's an outstanding rugby player, and something happens when he's on the field. But I think that Moanga has a vastly more experienced first 5, and he showed it in that game. And probably the backup was probably Beauden Barrett, actually, if something happened to him. But Mackenzie's certainly worthy of being in the World Cup squad and could be an X factor by bringing him on as a impact player. If something was wrong and the game needed changing, you brought him on for 20 minutes, it would change the game. So I think he vindicated his selection in the World Cup, like Christie. So that was probably quite good. And the third thing that I think that was pretty obvious was Taukei'aho. Under pressure and maybe after a couple of very good performances for the All Blacks, his line-out throwing was found wanting on a couple of occasions. He didn't quite have the edge. It probably reminded everyone that Cody Taylor and Dane Coles are our 1 and 2, not necessarily in that order. And that Taukei'aho is an ideal backup. And once again, a great sort of a player to bring on as an impact player. So I think it answered a whole bunch of questions. The third one was probably Will Jordan probably came through that game as a good backup fullback, but a first choice wing, because he's been playing outstanding rugby as a winger, and as a fullback he's a good backup. So Beauden Barrett. So I think it probably sorted out a lot of their selections, actually. I mean, you could also talk about the loose forwards, because Finau played well, scored a try. That's pretty bloody good to do that in your first test. He's very much like Frizzell, I think. Very similar footballer, and they offer a similar amount, but Frizzell's got a bit more experience at international level, and he's been playing well this year, so he got the nod. So it's that was another thing that probably came through. Finau will live to play another day. And so will probably Stevenson, I guess, on the wing, because there's so many wingers that are so good. I mean, it's a matter of who to leave out, not who to pick. So I think they achieved a lot. Saturday's game achieved a lot, even though I was against it. So, yeah.
Well, we had to see, Mex, didn't we? We've got to see, these players have got to, at some stage, if they are called upon, step in and replace the guy that was selected previous. And it showed very much that we've got an A team and we've got a B team. We've got players that are better than the guy that is standing behind them. But at a World Cup, there's going to be injuries. There's going to be an attrition rate. We get to that knockout stage, mate. We've got 3 test matches if we want to win it in 15 days, Saturday. And I don't think that same 15 will start every single one of those games. So we had to know. But I suppose the delicate balancing act now for Ian Foster and his selectors is how to keep all of these players at that level after the first game against France going into that quarter-final, because there is a drop-off in opponent after that, but they've all got to be ready, as I say, for that quarter-final if they're needed.
Yeah, well summed up, Marty. That's why you're in the job.
Thank you, sir.
So that was a good contribution. And I agree with most of what you're saying. I think there's a clear difference in the World Cup, though, between playing France in the first game and then playing Namibia. I mean, I think there's a hell of a difference between those two. So, the clarification of what our top 15 to 20 players is really good. Will they play them all against the Springboks at
Twickenham?
I'll let you know.
Yeah, you'll be there. Yes.
Will they play them all? And I think they will. I think that these selectors are the changes to the All Black selection panel. I think are showing dividends, and I think they're smart. And the announcement of this All Black team, it's hard to fault. You'd have to be a real miserable bugger if you found fault with that All Black squad that's touring the World Cup. So we can feel really good about that, Marty. But I think they've got everything covered. There's been a bit of talk on the breakdown and stuff like that maybe we didn't have enough loosies.
Yeah.
5 loosies. They've got so many wingers. But Fa'anuku played so well, really. He forced his way into that team, I feel. But, 5 loosies, but you've got two locks. You've got 3 world-class locks, but and they've named 4 locks to go, but 2 of those locks play flanker as well. So I don't think there's a problem because, if you were picking the team against France and Brodie Retallick, well, let's talk about the reality. He's got a small injury, so he's not going to be playing before the quarterfinals. He might play the half an hour or something running into the quarterfinals against
Uruguay, the last matches.
Uruguay, yes. He may play the last 20 minutes just to sort of give his knee a bit of a go, but, you'd think that they'd want those 3 world-class players on the field, the whole 3 of them.
But this contradicts what you say, Mex, about the combination, doesn't it? Because I feel we've got that combination now. We've got Frizzell, Savia and Sam Cane. And, if you adjust that, if Scott Barrett has to go from lock into that, well, then you've got to readjust that combination, don't you? Or do you bring Artie Savia over at 6? I like that settled. I thought those 3 are established now as our loose forward trio. And so we just got to hope that they can maintain right throughout the tournament, don't we? Because if we do lose one, that's why I thought Finau would have been a good person to put in there as opposed to maybe carrying a 6th prop, because he is kind of almost like a Shannon Frizzell doppelganger.
Yeah, no, I mean, what you're saying is right. There's always going to be these decisions, Marty, and that's one of them. But I think the reason that they didn't take another lock is because Lord has been carrying an injury, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And he hasn't been considered, and he hasn't had a hell of a lot of rugby. So, therefore, they said, okay, we've got... And I'll tell you what, that guy, Vai, came on and played bloody well. Yeah,
he did. He had his best game, I thought, for us. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think everyone would have to be smiling because he really was alive. So he's an option as a backup, but he's not going to be big enough against the big boys to play as a lock. He's played a bit as a flanker as well, so they've got that up their sleeve. So what they said is, okay, we'll take our best we've got, and of course, one of them has the ability to play in all three positions, which is really, really good. So I'd say that they will pull on one of the lot if there's an injury in the loose forwards. If there's an injury, otherwise they're fine. If there's no injuries in the loose forwards, they're fine, as you say. They're fine. But if there is an injury, they could play Vi or they could play Barrett.
I wouldn't be surprised to see that, in one of those other games, because it's a strange tournament. Because we got France, and then we have, as you say, Namibia, then we've got Italy, then we've got Uruguay, and then we've got that quarter-final. So it's just a delicate balancing act to how to get, keep everybody alive until that quarter-final. And then from the quarter-final, you press the foot straight flat, because that's when the A-team's got to play. Mex, you look at the squad, and I look at it and think...
reckon it's the Hey, Marty, I'm just going to make a comment here. I don't think it is a balancing act so much, because I reckon we've got a very, very good squad, and I think they've got their team to play in the first game. They will play that team. I think they've shown a bit of consistency. They were probably thinking a bit of both. They had a foot in each camp, I reckon, before they named this last team against Australia. And I reckon they would have been thinking, keep a bit of rhythm and flow, keep the winning team, keep playing them. They won't make that mistake again. So they're going to play their top 15 against the Springboks at Twickenham. And then the following week they'll play, and if everything goes according to plan, and there's no injuries, I'll play that same team in the next game against France. And that's certainly what I would do. They're not going to be balancing it around. That's what they'll do. And then they're going to play Namibia. So they'll give everybody a run. All the players that need to have a run, that haven't had a run so much, they'll give them a run, because, man, if you and I played in that game against Namibia, we'd win.
Well, if you played, Mex, not me, but if you played, I'd select you to play, mate. I would never have a problem with that at all, no.
So that's... So I don't think it's a balancing out. I think they'll come nicely, that little break. Italy will be a bit more serious, won't it?
Yeah,
so,
we'll select that, the good team again, the A team again. Then probably rest them, do you think, against Uruguay, and then bring it back again for France? Oh, sorry, for the quarterfinal, Ireland or South Africa.
I think the players that play really good against Namibia, say there's three players that really stand out against Namibia, and it's sort of pretty much their second squad. I reckon those three players will play against Italy. They will reward performers, because, you never know when you're going to have an injury, and you've got to have those guys that can stand up, and you can only judge, the best players by playing against the best teams. You can't judge them playing against weak teams. And I've just about contradicted myself, haven't I? I've seen Namibia's weak, but there's also such a thing as, when you're in the slot, sometimes you're in the slot as a player and you just play well. You just know everything's going to go well. It doesn't matter who you're playing. You just got, and Will Jordan's one of those players, isn't he?
Scott Barrett's another one.
Yeah. Who else?
Scott Barrett's another one at the moment.
Yeah, Scott Barrett. But actually, on that note, Scott Barrett's getting better. He's getting better and better. I mean, I think he is world class too. I mean, we all know Whitelock and Retallick are world class locks, and Scott Barrett, he's now joined those three. So that's why I think, if there was an injury, or if they needed an extra player in the loose forwards, they could play, Vi or Scott Barrett and still have their best two locks on the field. So, that's just a thought. But, So, and then there's another week game against Uruguay. Now, Uruguay are in the Rugby World Cup ahead of the United States of America. It's extraordinary, isn't it? So they're not going to be up to much. There's only 7,000... There's only 7 million people in Uruguay, I think, and there's only a small number of players. So you'd have to say they're lucky to get there. They'll be one of the weaker teams, like Namibia. So that'll be a chance to play those other guys again after the Italian match. So I think it's pretty straightforward. The only factor is going to be injuries, isn't it? And that's when you're going to have to tune. That's when you're going to have to find your balance, find your replacement players. So it's an exciting opportunity, and there's no reason why we can't go up there and win the bloody thing.